Hello, my name is Jennifer Dixon with Thrive Yoga and Wellness. Today we are going to talk about a standing forward fold, Uttanasana. This is part of an ongoing series breaking down the most fundamental poses that you'll find in various yoga lineages, whether it's Ashtanga, a Vinyasa flow class, even Hatha and Iyengar classes. They all have a standing forward fold, Uttanasana. Now, the biggest things that you need to think about when you're doing your standing forward fold is it requires a whole bunch of openness in your hammies and in your back. So if you are naturally tight, if you're a runner, if you've not been working on opening up your hamstrings, you may not be able to come to the full expression of the pose, i.e. legs straight, for quite some time. Don't lose hope. Don't get discouraged. Remember, you may have the anatomy that's a little tighter, so it's got to work on stretching it. And if you've been a runner and you've been doing all these physical activities to build the muscle, those muscle fibers up, it's going to take time to loosen them up. But I promise you, with time and regular yoga practice, your hamstrings will open up, and this will become a pose that you'll look forward to. So to perform your Uttanasana, standing forward fold, I like to have either the feet hips width distance apart, or you can have them toes together, heels apart. In Ashtanga Yoga, which is what my lineage is, it's generally performed in a sun salutation with the toes together, heels apart, and then you forward fold. So what you're going to do from a standing mountain pose, Samastitihi or Tadasana, chin tucked, head held high, chest proud, you're going to inhale, and then on the exhale, you fold forward. Now, you bend your knees as much as you need to in order to get your hands as close to the mat as you can. Now, if that means you're almost like in a seated position, that's okay. You can also grab some blocks and bring the floor up to you. I prefer to just bend the knees a whole bunch until I can get my hands there. Now, the full expression of this pose, toes together, heels apart, legs are straight, chin is tucked, and the forehead is reaching towards the shin. Elbows are back, not out. This is a really tough pose for most people, and it depends on your anatomy too. Remember, I've got not the longest legs on the planet, so if you've got a really long legs and shorter torso, that expression of the pose may look a little different. That's okay. What we're working on is creating length in the back body, this posterior chain, your hamstrings, your calves, your glutes, and all the way down your spine. I love the cue of the chin tucked because that disengages the muscles along the cervical, the neck, and it allows you to get a really good stretch all the way to the top of the head. Now, if you tend to lock your knees, soften them ever so slightly and force yourself to engage those quadricep muscles, these big muscles on the fronts of your legs. When you do that, you're going to automatically feel a slightly deeper stretch in those hammies. Now, another thing that you can do is you can bring your hands to your shins and work your legs straight. That, again, it depends on how open your hamstrings are. You can also bring your hands out in front. The whole point here is to really work on the back sides of those legs without locking out the knees. So if you notice, when I locked my knees out, my tailbone shot out, and that put a funny curve in my low back. That's not what we're going for, and it can hurt over time. You can do this same pose with your feet hips width distance apart, softening the knees ever so slightly, and then still bring those hands down to the mat beside the feet, keeping those knees soft but going towards straight, keeping the chin tucked, belly is in, letting the head just go. This is a great pose in a warm-up. It's a really great way to get your body ready to go. It is also something that can be challenging, especially if you have low back pain, if you've got something like herniation or sciatica, that sort of thing. I definitely recommend, if you are doing these forward folds and you're dealing with an injury, that you really focus on keeping your abdominals engaged. And I don't know if you noticed, when you come up, this is absolutely key, especially if you have the low back pain. A lot of times you're going to hear these cues about swan diving up or swan diving down. Did you see how my butt went out, my chest went out, and my belly went out? It totally disengaged everything, and it collapsed everything in the low back. That is absolutely terrible if you have low back pain, sciatica, anything. Trust me, I know this. I have it. I have had it a lot. I have a herniated disc in my low back, and that is the surefire way to bring a flare up. So instead of going down like you're doing a big dive into a swimming pool on a hot summer day, I recommend you can bring your hands up. You can bring that energy up with the sky, but instead of shooting the booty out and the chest out, keep everything engaged, tailbone down, belly in, soft knees, and then did you see how my back rounded a little bit to get down to the mat? That forces the glutes to work a lot more than this. This is sticking the booty out, letting the belly go, collapsing in the low back. Not good. Soft knees, tailbone down, rolling down ever so slightly, forces the glutes to work, which creates some space in the sacrum so that sciatic nerve has some space. When it's inflamed, it needs all the space you can get. Now, soften the knees a whole bunch, especially if you have low back pain. And then when you come up, keep the knees soft. Press down into those big toes a whole bunch. Secret is that belly is engaged. So you're thinking about trying to bring the belly off of the thighs, even here in this forward fold position. So push down in the big toes, soften the knees, belly's engaged. Use your glutes to pull yourself up. Now notice how this is more of a rounding up than it is a flat back up. There's a lot of misinformation out there about this flat back coming up. I call it nonsense. Monty said similar words in trainings before. This is so bad for the back. It actually kind of hurt for me to demonstrate, so I'm not going to do it, because the sacrum gets locked out when you come up like this. The sacrum doesn't move much, but it needs to move a little bit in order to get that pelvis and your entire back to stay in alignment. So if you keep the knees soft and you round yourself up, did you see how my pelvis out to come up was allowed to come up with me? That soup bowl went with me the whole time instead of trying to go from, that would be, I guess, be a 90 to a 45. It's terrible for the low back. I hate when I get cued that, and when I've tried to do it, it hurts. If you've got low back pain, sciatica, I definitely recommend take that flat back down and up nonsense out of your practice. Use compassion, soften your knees, tuck the tailbone, bring that energy down towards the mat with you with your knees soft, allowing that pelvis to move with the spine. And then when you come up, belly's in, push down on the big toes, knees soft, pull yourself up with a nice bend in the back to allow the pelvis to come with you. This pose is great. You will love doing it when you practice a little bit of mindfulness for the low back. And it's an awesome stretch for the hammies and the back body. The entire posterior chain is going to get a nice, good stretch. And it's a really great way to get your body moving first thing in the morning when you move through a couple of rounds of them. But again, when you first start out, like even me, and I'm pretty open, my very first forward fold of the day is usually a lot like this. By the end of the practice, I can get my forehead all the way down to the mat. But that takes several rounds of sun salutations. It takes a lot of practice, even some downward facing dogs, in order to get the hamstrings open up enough for that. So I don't recommend just going wham, bam, and getting right into it. That is not the easiest way to get into the pose. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun and maybe learned a little bit more about the standing forward fold Utanasana found in a lot of your yoga flow classes. If you have any questions, make sure you leave some comments down below. I will be really quick and responsive to them, and I can't wait to see you on the mat soon. Take care. Go in peace. Namaste.